The boxes were finally unpacked. The curtains were finally hung. And for the first time in what felt like years, I exhaled. This house, our house, felt like a beginning. A fresh start. A place where I could build something real after everything I'd been through. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because I had just finished arranging the bookshelf in the living room, alphabetically, because that's the kind of woman I am, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Is this Mara Ellison? The voice was old, raspy, like someone who had lived long enough to know when something important needed to be said.
Yes.
Who is this? The previous owner of your house. I'm sorry to call out of nowhere, but I forgot something. Something serious. I gripped the phone tighter. A camera, he said, hidden in the living room ceiling. I forgot to disconnect it from the cloud before the sale. It's been recording. The room went cold. I only noticed today when I opened the old feed by accident. I didn't mean to see anything, but what I saw, I think you have a right to know. What did you see? I whispered. Don't ask over the phone. Come alone. I stood in the middle of my beautiful new living room, staring up at the ceiling, and I felt something shift beneath my feet. Not the floorboards. Something deeper. My husband, Elliot, was still at work. He texted me around that time, picking up groceries, need anything? And I typed back, no, I'm good, love you, with trembling fingers. Because the thing about being a woman in a marriage is that sometimes you sense things before you can name them. A coldness that creeps in slowly. A distance that appears between conversations. A husband who is present but somehow never fully there. I had noticed it for months. I had told myself I was being paranoid. I drove to the old man's bungalow, small, tucked behind a gas station on Route 9. He opened the door before I even knocked. His hands were shaking. I backed up the footage, he said, leading me to a dusty desk. I'm not keeping it. I just thought you deserved to see. He clicked play. My living room. The date stamp. Last Saturday. Elliot's birthday weekend. The weekend, he told me he was at a work conference in Hartford. He wasn't at a conference. He was in my living room. With a woman I didn't recognize. She had her feet tucked beneath her on my couch. She was wearing his favorite old university hoodie. She laughed at something he said, that private, easy laugh that used to be mine. He refilled her wine like it was second nature. Like he had done it 100 times. Because he had. Then she said something that cracked the floor completely open beneath me. Does she know yet? Elliot shook his head. She won't. Not until the paperwork goes through. I just need her signature on the refinancing documents. Once the house is leveraged, I pull the funds and we're done. And then I tell her it didn't work out. She gets nothing. The house is technically collateral. She walks away thinking it was just a divorce. She smiled and kissed him. I watched my husband plan to rob me while sitting on the couch I had picked out, in the home I had helped purchase, in the life I had believed in completely. The old man quietly closed the laptop. There's more, he said softly. But I think you understand. I nodded. I couldn't speak. He handed me a USB drive. Everything is on here. I'm sorry, young lady. You deserved better. I drove home slowly. I did not cry, not because I wasn't devastated. I was. I was completely, utterly shattered inside. But there is a particular kind of grief that doesn't weep. It calculates. I had spent 6 years building a life with this man. 6 years of compromise, patience, and quiet sacrifice. I had turned down a job offer in another city because Elliot didn't want to move. I had delayed my own professional certifications to support his career transitions. I had chosen him over and over, even when the choice was hard. And he had chosen to steal from me while smiling at me across the dinner table. Fine. If this was the game, I would learn the rules. And then I would win. The next morning, while Elliot left for work, I made a list. Not an emotional list. A legal one. I called my college roommate, Danny, now a practicing family law attorney in the city. I hadn't spoken to her in 8 months. She picked up on the second ring, and when I explained in 3 sentences what had happened, she went quiet, then said, Mara, don't touch anything. Don't sign anything.
Don't tell him you know.
I'm coming to you. That afternoon, while Elliot thought I was at a yoga class, I was sitting across from Danny in a coffee shop 3 towns over, laying out everything I had. The USB footage, the timeline, the refinancing documents he had left on his desk, the ones he had casually asked me to look over when you get a chance. The ones I now understood were designed to transfer my equity directly into a shell account. Danny's jaw tightened as she reviewed them. He was counting on you trusting him, she said. I know. He was counting on your love, making you careless. I know. That's over now. We filed an emergency injunction that same week, quietly, efficiently, without a single word to Elliot. We flagged the fraudulent refinancing attempt. We secured my share of the property. We froze the joint accounts. And then I went home and cooked dinner. For 10 days, I was the best actress in the world. I laughed at his jokes. I asked about his day. I let him kiss my cheek and tell me he loved me, and I smiled back with a warmth so convincing that sometimes I almost believed it myself. Inside, I was building a wall, brick by brick, laying every piece of evidence behind it like armor. He never noticed. That was the thing about Elliot. He had always underestimated me. He thought my warmth meant weakness. He thought my trust meant blindness. He thought that because I loved openly, I would never see clearly. He was wrong. When the knock came at the door that Tuesday morning, I was already dressed and ready. Elliot answered it. He went pale when he saw Danny standing there with a court officer. Elliot Reyes, the officer said calmly. You are being served in connection with attempted mortgage fraud and asset manipulation. He turned to me, confused, betrayed, as if he had the right to that feeling. Mara, what is this? What did you do? I looked at him steadily. I protected myself, I said. The way you were supposed to. Danny slid the documents across the table. You'll also note that any funds moved from the joint accounts in the last 90 days have been flagged and are subject to recovery. The woman in the video footage has been identified. And the shell company you used for the transfer? Dissolved by court order this morning. He sat down heavily. He looked like a man who had been running a very long race and just now realized he had been running in circles. That night, I sat on the porch of my house. The deed was in my name alone. The locks had been changed. And the living room ceiling, where that small camera had recorded the truth that saved me, now held a new light fixture I had installed myself that afternoon. Because that's the other thing they never account for. The ones who lie to the people who love them. We are not fragile. We are patient. And patience, when it finally moves like an earthquake. I sipped my tea, watched the stars come out one by one, and I thought, I didn't just survive this. I rebuilt myself in the middle of it. And whatever came next, I would build it right, on ground that was finally, completely, unshakably mine.